You know, when an airline sounds like a soap opera, this is that story. It's about ambition, politics, big metal bags, and one very messy breakup. Meet East African Airways, the airline that tried to be everyone's airline and then didn't. Let's begin at the start because the start is actually classy. East African Airways began right after World War II in 1946 as a regional airline for Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania, which later became Tanzania. It was meant to be the big joint airline for East Africa. One company, 3 countries, lots of roots and a sense of team spirit. It even worked with BOAC in the early days. So this was not a backyard project, it was proper. For decades, EAA grew. We are talking domestic routes, cross-country hops, and even international runs to London, Rome, and other big cities. It had a fleet of everything from DC-3s to VC-10s, and DC-9s, the kind of mix that says we fly small towns and also try to fly to big Europe. By the mid-1970s, the airline employed thousands and had a serious footprint. People remember it as the airline that actually connected the whole region. So what went wrong? Spoiler, it was not one thing. It was a cocktail of money pain, politics, and bad timing. First, money. Running an airline is expensive. Fuel, maintenance, staff, planes, it all adds up. By the 1970s, EAA was carrying a big bill. Invoices piled up and the airline started running short of cash. Member governments, yes, the same Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania who jointly own the line, they were supposed to help, but sometimes they didn't want to pay what they owed for services and operations. When 2 owners of the company stop paying on time, the bank account gets lonely. Second, politics. Remember the East African community that linked those countries? It looked great on paper, but in practice, the 3 governments sometimes had different priorities. Tensions rose in the 1970s, political disagreements, different economic strategies, and nationalistic moves. When politicians start arguing, joint institutions suffer. EAA got caught in the middle. The breakup of the wider East African Cooperation basically pulled the rug from under the airline. Third, management and structure problems. A multinational airline needs a tight, professional management team, and clear, fast decisions. EAA's structure was big and cumbersome. Decisions had to please 3 governments and all this slowed everything down. There were attempts to bring in outside managers. For example, in 1976, Lingers offered management help. But by then, the damage was heavy. Overstaffing, inefficient routes, and poor cash flow made the airline fragile. Let's jump to the dramatic ending. By late 1976 to 1977, the airline was in crisis. Flights slowed, deaths had ballooned, and operations were shaky. By January 1977, EAA had grounded flights, and in February 1977, it went into liquidation. Reports at the time put the airline's debt very high. Flight International reported debts running into the tens of millions. Figures often quoted are around $100 to $120 million. That's a lot of shillings and dollars for a regional airline in the 70s. And then the countries split the pieces. Each nation moved fast to create its own flag carrier. Uganda had already formed Uganda Airlines in 1976. Kenya formed Kenya Airways in 1977. KQ's foundation date, by the way, is 22nd January 1977, and operations kicked off soon after. And then Tanzania, they set up Air Tanzania in 1977. In practical terms, Kenya simply re-registered planes that were on Kenyan soil and launched a new national airline. Quick move. So where EAA had tried to be regional, the successor scene was national. Now the human side. EAA's crews, engineers, and staff, they were left scrambling. Jobs vanished, maintenance contracts collapsed, and reputations took a hit. Airports that hosted EAA services lost routes. The region lost the convenience of one shared airline, and the gap changed how East Africa flew for decades. Before you roll your eyes and say typical government projects, remember the successes. EAA had been the airline that connected small towns and big cities. It trained pilots. It ran cross-border logistics. It carried diplomats, goods. It also showed how complicated regional cooperation is. One brilliant idea, but you need matching politics and cash. Yeah, so that's it for this video. I guess I'll see you in the next one.